welcome to Creative Conversations. I'm Roger Humphrey. In this episode, I'm pleased to welcome musician, educator, and author Lisa Plasse. Please join us as we discuss her teaching studio survival during COVID, the wonderful success of her books, and the challenges of balancing home and career. Before we begin, please take a moment to hit subscribe or follow. It's an easy thing, and you'll really be helping me a lot. Also, if you or someone you know plays guitar or ukulele, then you really need to go over to rogerhumphrey.com and check out the stuff that's free there. There's a link in the description below. Thank you.
Progress.
And we are welcoming Lisa Plasse to the program. Thank you, Lisa, so much for coming on. I appreciate this a lot.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, you've been a busy woman in your life. You've done quite a bit. So we really have a lot to unpack. I mean, I could probably spend all day talking to you, but I won't do that to you. So, let's start. You've number one, people should know that you are a music teacher and a studio owner. And
yes.
So let's talk about your studio a little bit, if we can do that. Now, you teach flute and voice, is that correct?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I opened my studio back in September of 1998, so we have just finished our 25th year in business.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I have a team of teachers that work with me, so we cover all instruments and vocal lessons as well. And we do all ages, all levels. We also now, since the pandemic, we have virtual lessons, so we offer both in person and virtual. We did have some of our students that had relocated during the pandemic, but they didn't want to leave their teachers, so now they see their teacher virtually. So that's the one positive, is that they got to continue. And but 25 years later, we're still plugging along. We have our students that come in, we give them the recitals, we have, we're performing all over the place with them. So it's a really wonderful situation. It also allowed me to have a lot of flexibility when my kids were young. So if they needed something, if I had to go to school for them for a program, or if they were homesick, just being able to have that flexibility made the difference, as a young mom with, 3 little kids running around.
That's a full-time job in itself.
It is.
So, you teach at all ages. I noticed on your website that you ages 6 and up. Am I remembering that right?
Oh, yeah. And in some cases, because every student is different. We've had some students as young as 4 years old that have started, like 3 and 4 years old, because they would come in. We always say to the mom, let's have a trial lesson, see how they respond. And there's some kids that could have sat there for 2 hours straight having a lesson.
Wow.
So they were very attentive, it's a case by case. So the youngest that we've had is 3. And then we have gone all the way up to where I've had students that have come in, they're in their 80s, and they wanted to pick up a new hobby because in their retirement, they were like, I always dreamed of playing piano, or I always wanted to play guitar. And they came in and take lessons with us. So truly, it's all ages, all levels, on any instrument. If you have a passion, we will help you realize that passion.
How many teachers do you have on staff?
Right now, I have 8 teachers that work with me. Yeah.
So that's good. That's pretty busy.
Yeah.
So I know. Do you work with? Is this all one-on-one lessons, or do you have group lessons as well?
Majority is one-on-one. There's a couple situations where we have like husbands and wives that come in, or siblings that might want. But through the years, we have found that really that one-on-one lesson, they gain so much from it. You can get a group lesson in school, you can sit in a room with 10 other kids, but you're not getting that individual that you need, that focus. So, but when we have those exceptions, like maybe it's twins that'll come in and they both want to learn piano and they're beginners on the same, then that's okay. or like a husband and wife, because they want to learn how to play guitar together, things like that.
Sure.
So, we'll do some exceptions like that, but for the most part, we have found the most success with those one-on-one lessons.
Okay, and when you're working with, I mean, I used to teach. I'm mostly retired guitar teacher, and
Mm,
and I used to teach. I used to enjoy teaching groups only because they don't make the kind of progress that you do in a one-on-one lesson. It's just you walk away from that, but they give each other moral support. You know,
yes.
when it's like, oh God, I'm the dumbest person in the world, and you look and you go, well, the guy next to me is a little dumber than that, so okay, and they're in there helping each other, so
Yeah.
the amount of time, I always thought that it was kind of fun to do that for beginning lessons and just
Hmm.
cover the basics, and then for those that wanted more, one-on-one
Right.
and things like that. And the
Yeah.
thing I always liked about group lessons, personally, from a business standpoint, maybe not so much as a teacher, but as a businessman, was that there's only so many half-hour or 1 hour spots in the day. And
Hmm.
I could take a half an hour or 1 hour spot and I could sell it 6 or 7 times to a group, where I can only sell it once to an
Yes.
individual. And so I like
Yeah.
that. And so,
Hmm.
but that's, it's a different critter when you're teaching virtual lessons, and it's the same thing. Your style of teaching and your expectations have to change.
Yes.
I started
Yeah.
teaching online almost a dozen years ago,
Hmm.
in part for some of the same things that you were talking about, where I had young students who were going to be gone to grandpa and grandma's for the summer, and they didn't want to stop taking
Hmm.
lessons.
Hmm.
And so I started, and I found very quickly that my style of teaching had to change, and my expectations had to change, and that
Hmm.
this could work, but it had to work on its own terms. You can't match it to something else.
Yeah.
So I always found that to be pretty nifty, and I still teach. What I handful of lessons that I still teach, just student. I don't take any new ones. I'm just letting it dwindle.
Right. Oh, yes.
and
Yeah. As they
and
age
and
out. Yeah.
and right, exactly. I got 3 kids who've been with me forever right now that are graduating from high school this coming year. So
Hmm.
I'll be 3 students less this time next year.
Oh, okay.
They'll be off to college and so on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
uh, but forgot where I was going with that. But I have found that teaching online, I still teach online. That's all I do. I don't teach it in my studio here at all anymore. And
Hmm.
um, and I find that it seems to work pretty good.
Hmm.
There are some people who really would rather go knees to knees with me, but I'm just really not set up for it anymore. So, but
Yeah.
I think it works very well. When the pandemic came around, I mean, for me, for a lot of people, a lot of teachers and a lot of students, that was really a tough change. I'd already been doing it with some students, and
Right.
all my students had done makeup lessons and foul
Hmm.
weather situations, things
Right.
like
Right.
that,
Right.
and so it was something that we could do, and it worked out pretty handy. So
Yeah.
it was a sideways step. Once it was a pandemic's here, we got to do it online. Okay, do it
Right.
online.
Right.
Everybody's raring to go, no problem. So
Yeah. No, that it's great that you had that. We had never done that. So when everything shut down, back in 2020, we closed the studio because they were saying, take 2 weeks and by April
right,
1st, you'll be able to go back. But within a week, as I was watching the news, I said, I don't think we're going to be open on April 1st. So I quickly reached out to all the teachers and I said, I think we need to go virtual. Let's pivot. And, let's not just wait until we can reopen. Let's see if we can do something with this. So, we started looking into it um and then so we only went a week without not teaching because we were just course correcting, figuring it all out. And then we were able to start meeting with the kids. And, it was a year and a half before we came back in person because between all the vocal students that you could not see them
sure,
in person,
right,
it was very difficult. Like piano and, guitar and bass guitar and drums, that was easier because you could wear a mask and you could go
right,
in and take your lessons. But any of the woodwind brass and especially vocalists, we were just like, okay, we can't do anything with that.
right.
So, we closed our doors on March 13, 2020, and then walked back in September 1st of 2021,
Wow.
which it was very bizarre. It's like it felt like time stood still, but yet it, blew past, and it still feels weird, the concept of time now, that I can't believe that we actually went through a pandemic and here we are back to a more normal, but I still have students that are canceling on a weekly basis. Somebody is always sick and said, I tested positive, I have COVID. And fantastically enough, we have it in place. So we're like, okay, you're virtual today. No problem.
Yeah,
You know,
that works out real
so
handy. That
it
it
does. It does. And then sometimes now parents have even said, "Oh my God, I'm stuck. I am in traffic. I cannot get home." We course correct and we're like, "All right, tell Johnny that we're going to send a Zoom link. We'll meet him at 4:30 on Zoom."
just like that.
And so instead of having your no-shows and your late cancels and oh, we need to reschedule, it has allowed for a lot more flexibility, which has been great.
I find it great for a whole lot of reasons. One of the things that I started during the pandemic, I'd had some people asking about uh, ukulele lessons, which I had never
Mm.
really taught before, and
Ah,
it's an easy sideways step. So I said, yeah, okay, let's do some ukulele lessons. And I was working with very young kids, and what I found with 5 and 6 years old, that many times they want to do it, but their attention span is not as good as you would like it to be for a 30-minute
right.
lesson. But because we
Hmm.
were doing it virtual, I started doing two 15-minute lessons every week.
Oh, that's nice.
And I mean, you can't do that in a brick and mortar situation, but on virtual,
No.
they
Yeah, that's true.
walk into the kitchen and turn on the computer, and they can do 15 minutes easy. But I also had a couple of kids who were 10 or 12 years old who'd been with me prior to the pandemic,
Hmm.
and they had attention deficit disorder, and so they
Mm.
had attention issues anyway. And so
Hmm.
by switching to two 15-minute lessons instead of one single 30-minute lesson, um,
Hmm.
we made great progress. So that was a benefit of the virtual that I just couldn't get,
Right.
in person. So that was pretty handy. I like that a lot. So
Yeah, that's actually a great solution because sometimes you lose a child because they can't sit for the 30 minutes
right.
and
And
then they're frustrated.
the other nice thing is that because I'm seeing them twice a week, they don't have to wait 7 weeks to see me or 7 days to see me again.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's
they
more
have
reinforcement that they're getting.
they have a
Yeah.
lesson on Monday and turn around they have another one on Thursday. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
That
it's
that's nice because also if they don't practice a lot, then at least they're seeing you twice a week. So that's a
exactly,
help to
yeah.
reinforce the concept.
Yeah, it was really handy. I like that a lot. So, and
Yeah.
you're working with young children. Are you doing any of the Suzuki programs or any of the other franchise programs like that?
No, we actually are doing the traditional. We're teaching them from the beginning. They're getting their theory books. So for whatever instrument that it is, we are teaching them from the beginning.
That's good.
Um, for our string students, my string teacher, she does use the Suzuki books because she likes the music that's in there,
Oh,
but
okay.
she is teaching them how to read from the beginning. She's not doing it by rote. She wants them to know that this is a C and this is a sharp and this is a beat and I want you to do
Right.
this. So, but she likes the music. She said, so, she said, I buy the books but I don't teach it through that concept. So,
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
um,
I'm not a big fan of the rote. I did it for about 2 years, 3 years, something like
mhm,
that, and it works sort of. But the thing that they don't tell you about are all the students that it doesn't work with. And
yes.
so what I did, I actually wrote a primer for my young kids
Hmm.
of some basic folk songs, a
Yeah.
dozen, 10 or 12 songs. And I did it
Hmm.
all in tablature because it's a very easy system to learn how to read for
Right.
guitar, and
Yes.
they just play melodies, no chords. The little fingers can't even hardly do the melodies, let alone the chords. And
Right.
but they play these melodies, and we sing the songs. The words are in there, and so on. And
Hmm.
so almost immediately they have something that sounds like music. And it
Right.
takes, depending on the child, 3 or 4 months to go through that and learn all of those songs. And
Hmm.
then notes. Yeah, FACE. Every good boy does
Yes.
fine. Blah 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 blah. And we
Yes.
do, and it just so all that is just it gets their fingers working and it gets their brains
Hmm.
working and it hits that instant gratification button.
I
You
was just going to say that. Yeah,
know.
you have to grab them in the first couple lessons because they need
Right.
to leave playing something or singing something
Right.
that they recognize, because then that's what motivates them. Because if you're just saying play a C and they're like bum, they're like, okay, now what? And then they're bored. So, so we always start off because and I always ask every single time, what's your favorite song? And then they'll, whatever they tell us, we teach them in whatever form, the simplest version that they can do it. But they'll be like, Mom, I learned. And then the parent is happy, the child is happy, and then you have a happy customer that keeps coming back.
There you go. Yeah, and it's
Mhm.
and of course while the child may be your student, the parent is your client. Yeah,
Yes.
you know,
And you got to
so
make them happy.
you better believe it because they're writing the checks every month. So,
Exactly. Yes.
so,
Yes.
so, and you don't do any retail kind of stuff. You don't sell their books or anything like that, or do you?
No, we had tried that in the beginning, but you know what? We just really wanted to focus on the students and, working with them and doing what we need to for them. It got too much in term, and also keeping the stock, because there's a lot of overhead when you have to have the retail portion.
Right.
We were even doing for a while we were renting instruments, but we had a company that we were working with. But sadly, that stopped during the pandemic because
Ah,
nobody was
sure.
renting instruments,
Of
nothing
course.
was happening. And especially with the issues of the sanitary sterilization process. So everything was kind of put on hold. So we stopped doing that as well. So now we're just strictly you come in, have lessons, and that's it. That's what we do.
I early in my career, I was connected with a couple of guitar builders and or I should say middlemen,
Hmm.
wholesalers, and I had an opportunity to sell, and I could order them one off, which was kind of nice. But what I found was that it was a distraction. There was always that tendency of saying, we could get you a better guitar. Get that out of just needed to be out of the conversation, and it found
Hmm.
that distraction and that little bit of temptation to try to make an extra $50 or something like that. It's like no, no, no.
Yeah.
So I'd far and away prefer to work, with a retail organization and let them handle all that kind of stuff, and just
Hmm.
as long as we were friendly, that worked out pretty good. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
now you've written a couple of books, and one of them is about a student, young child taking music lessons. Maricela
Yes.
discovers music. Uh,
Yes.
can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So when the pandemic hit, obviously I instantly became unemployed, other than, teaching the lessons online. But,
Sure,
everything that I did, all my performing gigs and shows that I was doing, it all came to a stop. So I had a lot of extra time on my hands. And I was on Instagram one day and something popped up saying, join this writing conference. And I've always been a writer. That's like my side passion. I love to write poetry, writing lyrics when I'm writing music, writing short stories, so, and it's I guess my mental release, I get to just put it down. I have a
sure.
journal, so it intrigued me. It was reasonable, was a women's in publishing type of summit. So I thought, all right, let me check it out and see what happens. And through that, I put together a parenting memoir that I'm going to be releasing soon. I just haven't done it because, life gets in the way now. But in one of my writing groups, one of the writers said, I have a challenge for everybody. Um, let's write a children's book and come back to the next meeting with some ideas. Well, not only did I come back with the ideas, I came back with the entire book. So
That's great. I love it.
yeah, I just, after the meeting, I thought, children's book. Never would have thought about doing that at all. But I could not stop. The idea just flowed, and within 4 or 5 hours, I had the entire children's book written. I had
Wow.
the outline, I had the story, I knew what I wanted to do for pictures. And it's basically my story of how my passion for music and what led me to do what I'm doing. And it's going to be a 5-part series. So
Oh,
I'm currently working on the second book, which is Maricela Goes to College. So it's going to be my entire college experience, what I did.
uh-huh.
And so it started more as like a children's book where you could read it as a bedtime story, but it's going to become more of a chapter book, as
Ah,
Maricela gets
sure,
older. So
sure.
she goes to college. So part of what I'm working on for this second book is putting together a playlist, like all the music that I had to learn, all the key songs and solos that I did on flute, that I did vocally, that I did with my chamber choir, that I did with the wind ensemble, like all these key pieces that, kids can say, hey, what's that? What does that song sound like? So it's a little bit of like a music appreciation through the book,
Oh,
and a glossary of some of the basics of music, things that I had learned, but just giving it a simpler version for children to understand. So it's not just the story, but it's also a little bit of music theory, music appreciation, music history, So that's how the second book is shaping up right now.
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, it is. It's basically it's my life. So and the name Maricela, when I was in high school and in Spanish class, that was my name that my
Oh.
Spanish teacher gave me was Maricela. And she always referred to me as Maricela. I was never Lisa. She'd see me in the hall and she'd be like, "Hola, Maricela," and then she'd be like, she would ask me. I would hear her calling me, "Maricela, are you going to practice the flute?" So it just kind of stuck, that's what she always called me. And whenever she said it, people were like, "Who's she talking to?" I was like, "It's me." So.
That's funny. That's
Yeah, so that's how I got the name because I was trying to decide what should I name her. But that voice, that teacher, her voice is always in my head because wherever she saw me, she called me by that name.
it's funny the impact that teachers have on us, and
Hmm.
it once you're aware of that, then as a teacher, it becomes kind of a not really a burden, but you certainly take that serious.
It's true because you don't know what element of your
Oh
teaching
yeah,
style is somebody going to pick up.
right.
Is it going to be a corny joke that you said? Is it going to be a little catchphrase that you said? And, but I realized that these certain phrases that teachers had said to me throughout my life, they stick. And, and you remember them as clear as the day they happen.
I ran into a now a gentleman who's having a very successful career in business, and he's doing very
Hmm.
well. And I hadn't seen him since he was in high school or so, and so we chatted briefly. And he made a comment one time that a phrase that I had used
Hmm.
uh, about he was a slacker when it came to practice, and I had to get after him, and so one week he practiced really hard. When he came in, he played really well. He played
Yeah.
better than he'd ever played before, and he was really kind of startled at what had happened, and so that turned him into a good student. And I
Yeah.
made the comment to him at that time. I said, "Worthwhile things always take hard work," and
Hmm.
and so he said he remembered that going through college, and now he's in business, and he said it's
Hmm.
hard work, but he said the worthwhile stuff always is. And I
Hmm.
thought, okay, I should listen to my own advice. I'm kind of a lazy bum, but good for him.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know what, as teachers, we do make a huge impact on our
Oh yeah,
students,
we really do.
so we always have to think about, what we're doing, what we're saying, how we're reacting to them. It's for me, I always tell the kids, if you're not having fun, you shouldn't be here. That's really what it
Well, yeah,
is.
yeah. It kind of comes down to that. And I used to tell the students, and in front of the parents, I said, I don't ever want you to practice. And they would look at me and go, "What?" I said, "I want you to play every day for about a half an hour or so." But that
Hmm.
word practice is like, "Oh, I got to practice."
Right,
But if I
right.
say, "What can you play?" Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So it's
Exactly. And
just
that's, yeah,
just kind of twist those words around a little bit. So you
it's
have another
true.
book, Words of Wisdom from the Everyday Mom. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the parenting memoir that's going to be releasing this fall.
Oh, okay. That's not out
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. Yeah, so that's actually how I started that writing summit when I attended because I had had a loose thing. It basically is all the different notes that I had left my kids because every morning I had a little chalkboard that I had on the kitchen table and I'd put a phrase for the day, just something for them to look at and think of when they, went to school and I started just keeping a journal with all of these little anecdotes that I was giving them, life lessons, we'd have conversations and I'd come up with something for them to remember saying, okay, when you're in this situation, do this. So I just kept this ongoing journal. And so when I went to this seminar, they were talking about how do you create books, develop your outlines, storylines, things like that. And I said, oh my God, I have a journal full of all of this stuff. So, so I took it and I started, developing it, working with other authors, getting them to beta read it and ARC read it. And so now it's done. I just have to be brave enough to put it out there because it's always you feel vulnerable, but
Oh yeah.
the Maricela Discovers Music was my test. I wanted to see what would the response be, and I actually was overwhelmed by the response of the people that I knew that said, "Oh my God, I cried when I
Oh,
read your book."
that's
And I
wonderful.
said, "Wow." I said, "Really?" And they were like, "Yeah, your story is so beautiful, and I can't wait to see the second book, and I'm so excited to see where Maricela goes." I said, "Well, you're looking at her. You know where she goes."
Here I
Yeah.
am.
I was like, "It's my story."
That's
So,
that's that's
but
wonderful.
they're so enthralled with the character, and I keep having to remind them. I was like, "It's me." I was like, "That's me."
Now I know that this is available through your website, and it's also available through Amazon, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, it's on Amazon. So if anybody's interested, and I do have this is what it looks like. This is my book.
Okay.
So yeah. So it's, it was always one of those things that are on your bucket list, that you want to be a writer, and when I had to choose careers, I've always wanted to be a musician. That's all I could ever see myself
Right.
doing. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. So, I got my teaching degree and so I can perform professionally and but then also teach and I have all the bases covered. So,
Now, do you perform you work with a community concert band, I believe, and you've been part of
I
that.
yeah, I did that for many, many years and which it was started out as the Ridgewood Concert Band, but then it changed now to the North Jersey Wind Symphony. I was with them for almost 20 years. I even served on their board. I was the president of their organization. But then what happened is with the studio, because I'm always there afternoons and evenings, I don't have that flexibility of saying I have to leave every Monday for a rehearsal because if I have lessons, I have to be there for the
Exactly.
lessons. So as the studio took off, I started having to be more flexible with my performing schedule. So I do jobs, I get gigs for different things and we'll take those jobs because it's not an every week because I don't want to have to
Right.
block off and say I can never teach on Mondays when that's one of the most popular days or a
Sure.
Wednesday or then that's when all these rehearsals are where you have to leave. If I left the studio at 6:30, that's just too early to be
Yeah,
leaving,
that's
you
half your
know.
income for the day right there.
Exactly. So I made that choice that, it's fine, so I do my professional gigs, on an as needed and it's fun. It's more flexibility and a lot different organizations, different people. So I meet more people that way too, which is
Yeah,
nice.
I played a lot of gigs, but I found about 15 years ago I got involved in the wedding business and started
Hmm.
doing weddings. And in Michigan, where I live, northern Michigan is a real haven for these outdoor weddings, and there's just
Yeah.
venues everywhere.
Hmm.
And so I found myself in the summertime when the teaching slacked dreadfully, and
Hmm.
so did the income. That I could balance that by doing these outdoor weddings, and so
Yeah.
I cut down to about 4 or 5 days of teaching every week, and had
Hmm.
my weekends just for the weddings,
That's
and
nice.
and it worked out. That was a nice balancing act. It was always a little tricky in May and September, just
Hmm.
because there was that transition of going back to coming in and out of these schedules. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was fun. And I've always said I said, geez, I'm playing beautiful music for people who are all dressed up, and it's the best day of their life. And I'm
Mhm.
well paid. Thank
Yeah.
you. I
It's
can,
like a win-win, and it never feels like work.
Oh,
It's
no.
just, because you're doing something that you love. So for me, when I
Sure.
have a gig, I don't consider it work. I'm just in heaven.
So
I'm sitting there playing or singing and I'm happy.
there you go. Doesn't get any
Yeah,
better than that. So,
exactly.
well, believe it or not, we are all out of time, and I don't want to take
Wow.
up any more of your time. That went by in a hurry. I really enjoyed this a lot.
I
So,
did too.
so I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye now, and thank you again, and hopefully you'll be back on the show again sometime soon.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I really enjoyed talking with Lisa. Honestly, I'm inspired by her and others like her who use their talents to improve the quality of life for their students and for the communities they serve. I'm thankful she took time from her busy schedule to come on the show, and I'm thankful for you too. I really appreciate you, and I hope you listen to other episodes of Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey.